Welcome to Moving to Personalized Learning with Data-Informed Decision Making. My name is Carrie Soliday. I am one of the state co-leads for the Classroom Diagnostic Tool. This was for an Ignite session. There will be 20 slides in 5 minutes, and at the end of the session, a group discussion is to take place. So it is best practice to use multiple measures of data to plan instruction, whether that is whole group instruction or personalized instruction. Today we'll use the Classroom Diagnostic Tool, PBAS, and eMetric as our data sources. Our first example will be with Algebra 1. And we have PBAS data that we're looking at. The value add is in the top left, and you can see they're in the yellow and the red, so they're not making a year's worth of growth. There's evidence of that. And at the bottom is the quintile diagnostic. The lowest two groups are the only ones that are showing growth. The rest are not. Moving on to eMetric data, you can see in the top left, the large majority are at basic or even below basic. I can look at the chart at the bottom in eMetric, and each module has reporting categories listed. I can compare that to the Classroom Diagnostic Tool, and I see data analysis as an area to focus on. Now I'm moving into the CDT data. These are learning progressions, a group learning progression map. In the gray horizontal bar is the expectations for Algebra 1, and in that purple circle you can see that most of the students were answering questions at the 8th grade level, and many of those were incorrect. So then I'm curious, what's the difference between grade 8 and Algebra 1? And so in this slide, I pulled up the sample questions from the Classroom Diagnostic Tool and then compared them to the eligible content. And on the left, I can see that in 8th grade PSSA, the students are expected to identify a line of best fit, whereas for Algebra 1, they need to draw, find, or write an equation for the line of best fit. I can then go into the CDT, and this is an individual map as well as an individual learning progression, and look to see that the student was answering questions correctly at the 5th, 6th, 7th, and even 8th grade level. And in the individual learning progression, the only question they answered right in analysis was at the 8th grade level. So again, I'm going to open up a sample question, and I'm going to consider what vocabulary knowledge is needed to understand the concepts and competencies aligned to data analysis at even the 8th grade level or Algebra 1. PDE has provided some great tools that show concepts, competencies, and Tier 3 vocabulary. Where do I find those? In SAS. I can go into My SAS, then the Mathematics Learning Community, scroll down to the bottom of the page, find the content repository, open the tab for concepts and competencies, and then I found the Algebra 1 document. Another place in SAS to find this would be under the Curriculum tab. I go to the icon that is the PA Standards Instructional Frameworks. I'm looking for Module 2 of Algebra 1 so that I can find the vocabulary, concepts and competencies in the curriculum map. Now it's time to plan that personalized instruction. I can use some of these free tools like Quizlet or Khan Academy or LearnZillion to provide content to students to preview before my whole class lesson. The next example is going to be 4th grade ELA. And you can see in the PBAS data that on the far left, top of the screen, they are in the red. They are not showing growth. At the bottom in the diagnostic, you can see that the basic group is showing growth and possibly the below basic, but there weren't enough to populate it, and projection. And use that data to look at then further at eMetrics. And as I'm looking at what's provided in the reports in eMetrics, I see text-dependent analysis is really popping up. I move into an individual performance report in eMetrics to produce that scatter plot on the bottom, and I see that most of my students either scored a 0 or a 1 in text-dependent analysis. I can dig further into eMetrics to produce some more scatter plots and how my students performed on multiple choice aligned to that same content. And I see that they really have minimal knowledge of key ideas and details. So then how do I plan instruction? I go into the group map in the CDT, look how my students are performing on the informational as well as the literature context, and I see in 3rd grade is where they're answering questions for literature, but in 4th grade for informational text. I'm going to pull up some sample items and compare that to the eligible content to, again, answer the question, what concepts and competencies are needed to determine and understand key ideas and details. So then I'm beginning to plan my personalized instruction. I have Newsella, BrainPop, iTunes U, and even some teacher-created resources. Jillian from Southeastern School District has created Learning Paths for her students based on an area they need to grow in for eligible content. Now I can plan that instruction. This is the student's individual map as well as their individual learning progression, and I can see that this student was answering yes at the third grade level for literature text, but at the first grade level for the other area of text. And I look at that learning progression sample, and I can see that the difference. Can this be done with students who are higher achieving? Certainly. You can see in the individual learning progression in all three administrations of the CDT, the student is in the green and the blue, which means these are strengths for them. And I can go into learning progression and just see how much of a strength and where to plan that instruction. And for the student, they're answering questions correctly at the high school level. Our question that will spark conversation for the room who is watching is, how do you use multiple sources of data to personalize learning? Perhaps you want to turn and talk to amongst yourselves in small partners and then go to a whole group discussion. And this is where we will end the Ignite presentation part.